Bria Gadd is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, holistic health coach, and certified personal trainer who specializes in female hormones, helping women with weight release and energy gain in premenopause and finding clarity in hormone chaos. I really love this conversation with Bria. We cover, the basics, the foundations of what women can do in perimenopause to really feel their best and what they can do to really up level things. And one of the takeaways that I loved most of this conversation is like, really, what's the point of life? Sort of like, where is your passion? Where do you find joy? And how can you up level and get rid of symptoms that are getting in your way of finding that? Like, that was my big takeaway from our conversation. Because really, I think we get caught in the weeds sort of our day-to-day life and just struggling with low energy and thinking, well, this is just how my life is now. And in reality, the whole point in my mind is like, how can we feel better so that we can change the world? We can show up better as ourselves for our family, for our loved ones, and, in our career, in whatever we want to show up in and really get symptoms out of the way so that it's not taking over our lives. And I think a lot of that it's hard to tackle because it can take a lot of energy to change things. So in this conversation we talk about how can we really, sort of pull back on things, invest our time and energy to help ourselves feel better, get energy back, and then be able to really go on and just really shine even in perimenopause. So I hope you really get a lot of great takeaways from this conversation and really enjoy it as much as I did. Bria, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love your podcast, and I'm really, really grateful to be here.
Thanks so much. So first, I'd love to learn or have the listener learn a little bit more about you, of just who you are and how did you get into what you do?
Yes. Yeah. So my name is Bria. I am all the things that many a mom, a wife, a pet owner. But in practice, I'm a functional nutrition diagnostic practitioner. I specialize in sort of in the female hormone time of perimenopause, and I'm a personal trainer. So my background really was in fitness and nutrition. I think I spent, my career whilst having little kids building, helping women find fitness, use fitness, build a strong body. And really kind of the synopsis of it was I around 35, I noticed a shift in my clients. A lot of the times, like my clients were around my age, we really related to each other. And it was things like just not having the same energy, not getting the same results, maybe starting to have some period changes. And around that time, I had moved with my family from Canada to Arizona, where we live. And it was a big move, lots of change. My business had to move with us. And integrating children into different schools. And around that time, I really started to notice a big change in myself. I'd always thought I don't have everything figured out, but at least I have my nutrition and fitness sorted. And I really started noticing things like it started with energy, just a major energy suck, more brain fog, a lot more cravings I was having. I gained what I like to call undeserved weight, where you don't change anything, but all of a sudden my leggings were feeling tighter. And I really hadn't changed my nutrition, minus that I was having a lot more cravings. And I did start to kind of cope with this fatigue that was setting in and this restlessness that I had with probably, increasing sugar, increasing caffeine, more wine at night, things like that. I noticed some period changes for me, which probably is what it should have been what sent me to my healthcare practitioner. But we're very good as women at pushing through things that maybe messages from our body we should notice. And the real kicker for me was I stopped sleeping well. I'd always done really well sleeping. And I just remember night after night waking up in a sweat at like two something in the morning. And and I couldn't get back to sleep. So I'd be up from two something until the running joke with my kids was that I fell asleep on the couch before they did. So it was a hard time in my life because it was not only impacting like my connection with my family, but if when you make a living helping people feel good and you don't feel good, it really does a number on you. And sent me to my healthcare practitioner who did the blood work, asked all the questions. She was really, really thorough and wonderful. And she kind of looked at me and said, Bria, you're the picture of health. And I remember that was kind of, we always have these like dark night of the soul moments where I was like really glad that I didn't have any of the awful things that come up when you Google night sweats and like these crazy symptoms in the middle of the night. But I remember thinking, I'm 37 at that time. I'm almost 44 now. Like, I don't think I can do 37 more years like this. Like, and it's not going to get better. We know it's not
Mhm.
going to get better. So it really like pivoted my career from like really focusing as a trainer on fitness and nutrition into better understanding what was going on in my body. And as I unwound, as I went through my own education, my own certification, and kind of unwound some habits and things that I did not understand that weren't serving me, really helped me understand how far away I had gotten from listening to my own body,
Mhm.
and also how little we knew. And finally really just recognizing, if I'm in the wellness industry and I don't know these things and I work with women, I mean, how on earth is a woman who has another amazing purposeful career not in the wellness industry ever going to learn these things? So
Mhm.
that was sort of the brief version of what really propelled me into feeling very passionate about educating women in this area, simplifying it for them, and giving them answers.
Yeah, I love that. Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you had such a common experience that
Yeah.
so many women go through it, like, and it's almost like it's new for each person because we don't know what's going on beforehand. We don't really know the picture of, what to look for typically. And all of a sudden, it's like you're going through it yourself and having a lot of my patients will describe it as like a layer all of a sudden growing on their whole body, like there's like a fluffy layer that they're like, what
Yeah.
is going on?
Yeah.
And finally there's a tipping point of just,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't handle
You're
this.
so uncomfortable that you decide to do something about it. I think
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah,
really nice if we got there before then.
yeah. Like you said, it really is amazing how much women can put up with and just deal with. And it finally has to reach a tipping point where they're like, oh, okay, this
Yeah.
something's got to give here. And that's
Yeah.
amazing that you're able to find balance for yourself and then be able
Yeah.
to support other women in finding that because yeah, it's so hard to find that. Like you said, if they're not in the healthcare industry, even if they are, they're just like busy and it's so hard to sit down and figure out, okay, well, what do I do with myself? Yeah.
Yeah, and these days, I mean, so that was almost 7 years ago now. And 7 years ago, I mean, I didn't even know the word perimenopause. I had no idea what it was. And I thought you went from period to menopause. And, my mom had had a hysterectomy, in her early 40s. So I didn't experience her really going through it the same way. She just didn't really talk about it. So these days, I mean, I can't open up social media without being hit with something about hormones or perimenopause or menopause, which on one hand is wonderful, but I think is very overwhelming for a lot of women at the same
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have the same thoughts about it. It's like, great, we're talking about this, but then there is this wide variety of information that's being put out there. Some of it's oversimplified, some of it's so complex.
Yes.
And it still leaves women like, okay, when I became recently aware of the fear that also comes up with hearing this. Because from my perspective, I'm like, yes, like this is so informative. But a lot of women have this experience of this is really scary to know what I'm getting into if they aren't
Yeah.
experiencing symptoms yet. And I'm like, well, actually, it's not guaranteed they're going to experience all these terrible symptoms. The whole point of talking about it is so you don't experience
Oh,
them. But
yeah.
yeah, it's still a wild world of the information that's out there.
Yeah, and probably, and the other, I think the fear that I hit along with that, that's a great point, was along with that, with growth and desire and demand comes capitalism. So now we have all these
Hmm.
supplements being sold to people that may or may not work for them. And I think that just reinforces a lot of shame in women, or this thought that we're broken and that this is what it is. And I definitely feel like it's important to, pull back the curtain on those things for women.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point too. There's always going to be money trying to be made on a problem or a pain point,
That
especially for
exists.
women. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, why you're so like to kind of switch into like getting into the nitty gritty. I mean, well, one thing I love to like your suggested title for this is like, why is perimenopause the gift that we didn't ask for, but the one we need to change to health? And I love that perspective on it, that it really is a gift. So often that when we're in it, we're like, screw that, this is not a gift. But it can be a learning experience, sort of a metamorphosis that happens. So maybe like, can you kind of explain why you see it?
Yeah, I love this. Thank you for asking. So, I mean, I think we're fed that, oh, this is a change in life. We're not, we're getting older, we're drying up, all, some of the things that we, hear, or that we've kind of been told, if we've been told anything. Ultimately, the way I see it and the way I've seen it again and again in my practice and in my own, experience, that perimenopause is really just the retiring of the ovaries, right? They're going from like full on, I'm working full time, to that journey of kind of passing the torch to whoever else is picking up the slack, mostly the adrenals, to a point where they're no longer around. I mean, we went through the reverse of this in puberty, so it's like not new to the body. It is does feel like a big shift, but I really see it as a transition. And like all transitions, whether you're getting married, whether you're getting divorced, whether you're starting a new job, it's an added workload to the body. And that workload, increases energy demand for us. And for most women, I think not all of our, I mean, all transitions are going to come with discomfort for sure. I'm not here to say it's going to be smooth sailing all the way. I do know it's not, but it's exacerbated if the solidity, the foundation of the health of your body is not in a great place, and body and mind, I think, at that point in time. So the gift, I think, really comes in that this is happening for women 35 to 55. I mean, 35 to 55, you've got decades left to live. So I think
Hmm.
the gift is that the added demand makes us more aware of what is maybe not functioning properly in our body right now or in our life. And it irritates us a lot faster to start to make those changes. And for those of us who are done having children, I think that we can look at it also as like, well, we're no longer being hormonally hijacked every single month. I think it's in the name of, procreation. So we actually can access parts of ourselves that we really weren't able to before. It's more available to us. So it's the gift we didn't ask for, but the one I think we really need. And if we pay attention and start to do the work now, which again, I think for most women ends up being 40 to 50, I mean, life can be pretty damn fabulous after that for the decades to come.
I completely agree. And I love that perspective. I mean, I feel like there are so many like good things that come out of this transition that,
Mhm.
of course, don't get the limelight as much. Even just like, one conversation I have here or hear from a lot of women in their like, mid to later 40s, 50s and
Mhm.
beyond, they're like,
Yeah.
you just stop caring about certain things. And I feel like that alone is so beautiful to me because it's like, how much time and energy do we spend, especially in our early years, caring about what other people think, caring about all these useless things to just be able to focus on our dreams and our passions and our
Yeah.
families, like the things that actually matter most to us in that period. I'm like, that alone is such a beautiful gift. So yeah, I love it.
I agree. I have noticed that shift from 40 to 40, almost 44. I have like felt it in my body. And it's
Amazing.
very freeing of energy and time for us. And you can get things done faster when you're not worried so much about what other people are thinking.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, from your perspective, like, why do you think women are struggling so much with perimenopause symptoms and just like not getting the results or the support that they're really needing and deserving?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like not getting the support is, I mean, it's not news, I think, anymore that, women just weren't really studied the way men were for, until the mid 1990s. So anyone in my age box, kind of late millennials into that next generation, we are operating off of information that was made and tested on men and not for us. So I think
Mhm.
there's the lack of support there and understanding. Ultimately, though, I think what's happening for most of us is, and what I see in lab work and my clients and with myself is that we're now often being told, and it's talked about, that it's our hormones, when really there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that are impacting the hormones.
Mhm.
So we kind of come back to this idea of, okay, we have this new energy demand. I think most of the problems until you're closer to 50 actually come from this energy supply and demand deficit, right? That's where the body starts to break down. We have a greater demand. The body maybe isn't as efficient because there's other things going on in it. And if we can repair that, then we can bring this energy supply back up. And a lot of the times, not always, the hormones can at least stabilize. And then if we need hormone replacement therapy or bioidenticals, that can be an option for us. So what I notice, so I think what's so frustrating for women is, they're even trying things like hormones or again, supplements, and we don't even know if the liver is detoxing properly or the gut is detoxing properly, or like what is the root cause of what's happening. So we're out there kind of trying things, throwing things at the problem without really understanding our body that way.
Mhm.
And I think the other piece of it, Miranda, is that I think we have this idea in our head that as women that I'm not feeling the best, so I'm going to do more. But I
Mhm.
really like to look at it, for anyone who's listening, it's kind of like being on a deserted island, right? When the body, or in the Hunger Games, that's one of my favorite examples if
Mhm.
you've ever watched the Hunger Games. The body's energy supply is not meeting the energy demand. That's a very scary place for it. So it's built to survive. And so it will slow down, it'll cut out all unnecessary personnel. There goes your sex hormone production. It'll kind of slow things down to conserve. So we're feeling in our body, oh, like maybe our periods get wonky, our libido goes, maybe we start to gain weight, we have no energy, we have brain fog, a myriad of other little things. And we're thinking there's got to be something I can do. And so if you picture yourself in the Hunger Games or on the deserted island, what's the first thing we should be doing? Conserving or finding ways for more energy to our body,
Mhm.
not going for a run on the beach. We don't have the energy for that. So I
Mhm.
think it's been very confusing for us because a lot of the answers we've been provided with for not feeling well in our physical body is move more, eat less. When the
Mhm.
reality is we have a deficient body that really needs a greater energy supply. And the process of coming back to finding that energy supply is always going to, start with the foundations, of course, of quality sleep and movement and nutrition and stress management and things, but it often goes deeper where you need to work with a practitioner to better understand, like, am I breaking down and absorbing the nutrients in my gut? Am I
Mhm.
getting the hormones out of the body? Yeah, and that's more challenging. You need guidance for those things.
Yeah, definitely. And even, in this conversation, you talked about like how you struggled with sleep and so many people do. And then people are like, just sleep more because it's so important. And you're like, wait
Yeah.
a second, I don't like, how do I do that then? And so yeah, even just figuring out how to do some of those things or what pieces need to fall into place for other pieces to then cook into place. Yeah.
Totally, I agree. Or, a lot of things we hear, it's like eat more protein. I totally agree. We likely need to eat more. But if we're not breaking down and absorbing that protein, we can eat all the protein we want and we're not getting there. Or, if we're trying to sleep but actually can't, that's a very frustrating thing for women. We hear about weight training, how important it is. And as a fitness background, I love fitness. I think putting on lean muscle is like the gold standard for wrapping your body in armor and supporting your hormone production. But again, if we don't have the energy just to function, then you're spending energy in an area that you don't have. And it really just exacerbates like almost like a financial debt. It's like you're
Mhm.
using a credit card when you don't have the money to pay. And
Mhm.
that becomes really problematic because the interest compounds quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that analogy and the desert island slash Hunger Games
Yeah.
analogy. I think that really gives the visual because, like you said, so often in life, especially the weight gain piece, if we're gaining
Mhm.
weight, it's like, oh, of course, I need to eat less and exercise more. That's what's been
Yeah.
drilled into our heads of what you do to control your weight. And it works for a lot of people to a certain point. And then, like you said, yeah, you're in a deficit and it doesn't make sense because you're like, oh, I'm gaining weight and I'm feeling tired, like something, must be like I have to go that in that same direction. But in reality, yeah, like pulling back, conserving, giving more energy,
Yeah.
changing the course of action. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of, eat less, move more is based on a constant that your body's function is working. And if
Hmm.
the body's function isn't working, then all of a sudden we're going to have some major problems. And I think that's what's so frustrating for women, and that there's just such a lack of education around it. Or really, like I almost think of understanding our body as like learning a language. And it's kind of like Latin, though. I mean, nobody talks it and nobody teaches it. So we're like trying to stumble our way. And yet it's the root of all other language. I think female
Hmm.
health is the root of so much, of
Yeah.
reproduction. But we need to learn it. And that's just going to take a little time. And I think that's the hardest part for women is slowing down to understand what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Mm.
you mentioned the debt, like this health debt, this energy debt that they go into. How could maybe a woman know if she's in that debt? I kind of start to identify that she's in that place and needs to change things.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think regardless of what age you are in, if as a woman, if you are not sleeping well most nights, like if you're regularly not sleeping well, regularly having digestive issues, irregular periods or really heavy periods, gaining weight that you don't know why, brain fog, restlessness, any of these things that are disrupting your life more than one time a week, I think that's a pretty clear sign that you're in health debt. And then you know you've got to do something about it.
Yeah. So that's,
Hmm.
what do you do about that? Or for
Yeah.
perspective, kind of like, how do you guide people through like
Yeah.
starting with that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I always think about, it's like, okay, well, what is the first thing we do when we're in debt? I mean, I think most financial advisors would recommend let's look at our credit card statements or at our spending of our energy and see, like, we want to lower energy demand. So let's look at wasted energy that is within our control.
Mhm.
And I think that's where we can come down to these foundational pieces of our health that pretty much every practitioner talks about, creating the space for sleep. So that consistency in a sleep routine, the same way we do with our babies and our children as they grow. So what are you doing the hour before bedtime? Like, let's stay off the screens. Let's get to bed at a similar time as frequently as we can. Doesn't have to be perfect. Again, getting out of bed 7 or 8 to 9 hours later and getting some sunlight in the eyes. So, just creating the space for our sleep for a few weeks to see if that helps and rectifies. Number two, I would say, is nutrition always. So, taking a look at what are the easy things that we know cost the body more energy than it provides. So then we look to our inflammatory foods. Again, these are quick things that we can cut out. I think, food's a sensitive subject for a lot of people, but when you start to shift your mind to, what is this giving me versus taking away? I think it can become a lot simpler for many people,
Mhm.
so we want to pull out as much as possible the things that cost our body more than it provides. So gluten, conventionally raised dairy, processed sugar, alcohol, too much caffeine, some of these things that we know just create inflammation. And inflammation means more energy demand because the body's got to do something about it. So, and then as well with nutrition, I think again, coming back to these basics again, am I eating 3 to 4 times a day, just like we feed our children, just like we feed our
Mhm.
pets on a schedule. So like feeding ourselves on a schedule, eating enough to keep us full and satisfied to the next meal. So some basic things for kind of these foundational energy demand. Let's just pull the energy demand down. Functional movement. So I feel very strongly if you are in health debt that like doing intense fitness is a really, waste of time and energy. We want to make sure that, we're already limited on that. So what do we need to do every single day? Well, most of us do need to move our body a certain amount, and a lot of us sit in front of computers. So for me, it's like consciously getting out. And that's where I think that 7 to 10,000 steps we hear about can really come into play, like functional movement, yoga, stretching, things that don't, again, cost the body more than it provides. Because if you go and, lift weights, I mean, you're calling on that cortisol. You're asking the body, you're tearing it to ask it to repair, which is a
Mhm.
really good thing when we have what we need in the body to. And finally, like really looking at how to manage stress proactively, I think, in your life. These are sort of the foundational pieces that, and I maybe I should speak to some tips there. Like I think a lot of us know these things, but whether it's meditation or whether it's EFT tapping or whether it's journaling or just having a good laugh with a friend, whatever it is that just kind of brings that calm to the body daily it needs to happen
Daily.
most.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think when you start there with your debt, I mean that automatically is going to stop the bleeding of energy. And I think I always like to say to people, if you are doing these things and you're not feeling any better, I think that's a really clear indicator it's time to reach out for support, for guidance to a practitioner,
Mhm.
because it's likely deeper than what you can handle on your own. And we don't need to waste more time and energy that way. So I
Yeah.
think that's step one. And then we can kind of move into how do we look at the function of the body? Can we look into testing if we need to, or can we just perfect our nutrition and find workouts that fit for us? We can move into layers of it, but I really think the foundational first piece is let's nail these kind of 4 daily to-dos most of the time and get a sense of, is this a debt I can get myself out of, or is this something that I need support with?
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, I mean, those foundations, we do talk about them so often, and still they're so easy to skip over because they're kind of boring. Honestly,
I
like none
know,
of us are really excited about just getting the same good amount of sleep
I
every
know,
night. Like it's boring,
for sure.
but it is so necessary to give us that foundation and really like, yeah, balance out that debt to income ratio, so to
Great.
speak, when it comes to our energy and the health that we have. So that's great. And I think that's a great point too of like, okay, if these things aren't like you're not being able to figure out these
Yeah.
pieces and or you really do feel like you have them in line, then yeah,
Yeah.
maybe there is something deeper going on.
Yeah, it's no different than if, you have a child that, is going to school and handing in their homework but getting F's all the time, then you're like, you're going to pay for a tutor. We need to get them some
Yeah.
support to figure it out, or you're going to sit down with them and work it through. You're going to create guidance.
Yeah.
But to speak to what you said, I get it. Like I'm the same. When I have more than 2 weeks of going to bed at 9:30 and like eating, I get very bored of myself. But that's where I think, we start to look to different energy supplies. So yes, we get energy supply from good quality food, we get energy supply from sleep, but when those get boring, where else do we get energy from? I mean, we get it from fun and pleasure
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
connection and purpose. So I think that's where when you have a little more energy that you can actually start to invest it in these other things that now cover the basics when maybe you want to stay up a little late and have some fun with friends and not suffer the consequences for it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Rather than feeling that like sort of that self-sabotage piece that then you're paying for the next day, and then like you were saying earlier, grabbing sugar, caffeine, alcohol to try to cope with that and feel a little bit better. Like you're in this like short term, trying to move things around and feel better, but you're really stuck. So I agree, like getting a little bit boring with it, then it did. Like it does allow you to, you have this really strong baseline that you're not just fighting against all the time, and then you do have more time and energy to have fun, to actually do bigger things that have maybe been on your to-do list or, bucket list for a longer period of time that you can tap
Yeah.
into. I
Yeah,
also
it's
feel
what
like even with like social media and things like that too, like the quick dopamine hit things,
yeah.
as you move away from that, then you can experience some more pleasure, like deeper pleasure, longer lasting pleasure that doesn't just leave you feeling, like as soon as you put it away, then you're already craving more. So it's the
Yeah.
same with the overall energy piece too.
I totally agree. And it's where I think it's where this financial kind of debt example works so well. Like
Mm.
in comparison, if you spend all of your money that on like quick little wins and you don't get to go on these beautiful vacations or like buy a stable home, but if you save for a while, and that might seem a little boring at times, but then you have this opportunity to do something that might be more meaningful to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, especially from your perspective to kind of go into the movement piece a little bit more, since you do have this
Yeah.
background in
Yeah.
personal training and everything. So to kind of maybe like summarize what you said so far is you're like really pulling back, maybe walking, getting
Mhm.
outside with that sunlight,
Yeah.
doing that, at what point, I guess like what would be your strategy behind moving beyond that when someone's like, well, I thought I was supposed to put on muscle, at what point is that a good idea?
Yeah. So I think again, once you're pretty sure you're out of debt, and that again, we're sleeping well most nights, energy consistent through most days, I think those are some pretty key, indicators that, I always think there's a joy element to fitness. Like if you really love doing one type of modality, and not only is it good for your body, but it makes you feel joy. I mean, that there's a big two for win for you energetically and like energetically in the body and to put on lean muscle. But, if we really want to make the best investment, for our hormones, I think finding whether it's resistance training or whether it's, even body weight resistance or Pilates, it really is more just the cadence and consistency of putting on that lean muscle. So for me, I really love like a 4 day, 3 to 4 day a week weight training session. And I split it up with some good stretching and mobility in there. And that just protects my body to make sure it's on track. And I mean, ultimately, when the ovaries retire, again, who's picking up the slack of most of the hormones? Our adrenals. So we really want to nourish and support our adrenals who play a big role, and we get a lot of from our tissue. So then let's build that tissue, let's build those muscles up as best as we can to support our hormones again naturally, so that if we need anything else for intervention, then at least we're in a really good place to actually receive them, get the benefit of them, and feel amazing again. So, kind of, I think, quick answer is do what makes your heart sing for sure if you love that stuff. But if you're like, I don't like any of it, I'm gonna do it. I would be a big fan of like 3 to 4 days of resistance training a week with a definite clear like mobility or stretching or yoga, whatever you like, component in there 1 to 2 times will sail your body in 12 weeks. It'll just change things for you if you're out of that health debt.
Love that. I love that. I feel like that's so clear because, like you said, through social media and things like that. It's like
Yeah.
put on muscle, eat protein. It's so
Yeah.
black and white cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And there are so many women, I think, who are pushing it more and trying to add that into their routine and still do other, cardio and all of that, that
Yeah.
it just ends up being too much when they're in that debt.
I think what a lot of people don't recognize either is when you're lifting weights or when you're working, whether it's lifting weights or working out, whether you're a runner or whatever it is, that again, that requires more energy supply. So now you're going to need to sleep more. You're going to need to eat more. And both of those things take time. So if you
Hmm.
don't have the time to do that, there are other fitness modalities. Of course, we need serious nutrition and fitness if you're going to be a marathoner, if you're going to be a CrossFitter, if you're going to try to win a fitness competition. But I don't think that's what most of us are trying to do. We're just trying to feel good in our bodies and protect it for the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that piece, what would be a strategy for nutrition? Like we kind of talked about the deficit and also
Yeah.
like eating more of certain things. Kind of like what would be your strategy there for most?
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, as you know, everyone's so different here. And this is
Hmm.
why, it's without understanding someone, it's so hard to just have a blanket nutrition plan for people. What
Hmm.
I really love to do with women is, again, work on their connection to paying attention to how their body's response to their own food.
Hmm.
So, again, initially, we have to pull out the things that are pissing off the body because that's just going to cloud your judgment and also exhaust you. It makes it really hard. I mean, nutrition is way more work than fitness, I think, because it's an all day, all week, forever thing. Whereas
Hmm.
fitness is, like I said, maybe 4 days a week. So I think start with the kindergarten basics, right? Let's start with, okay, I'm going to eat 3 to 4 meals a day and let's eat all of the macronutrients. Let's just make sure there's protein, fat, carbs, fiber at every meal. And then let's listen. Once you eat that meal, pay attention to an hour later. Do I feel full and satisfied? Or am I hungry already? Am I too full? That can really help us individually just adjust. And you only really need to track for a week or two. I mean, a month would be amazing because we have our cycle changes, but I
Hmm.
think you can get the gist of it and start to trust your relationship with your body and what she says to you. If you're hungry, you need to eat more. So, which one do you eat more of to make you feel better? That is going to be, again, person dependent. But if you've had a little bit of everything, we can start with that, increasing that protein and see how that makes you feel. So I know that's not the most clear answer for people, but what my goal and my goal with the Period Whisperer podcast too, is really to help women and empower them to hear the messages of their bodies so that they build that trust and get the results that they want or know when it's time to reach out for help.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, and yeah, it's unclear, but it's also the most clear answer you
Yeah,
ever give to any one person.
right.
Like you said, we're all different.
Yeah.
And so saying, listen to your body is never going to be the wrong answer.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because a lot of women especially they're like, I don't have time to figure it out. I just tell me what to do. But in reality, building up that conversation with yourself and learning to trust yourself and hear the signals, that is the most powerful thing, the most incredible gift you could ever have. And it's one that I
Yeah.
feel for our entire lives, we're told not to listen to our body. It's like push through tiredness, no pain, no gain is something that we all grew up with at least.
Culture.
Yeah, we're all hustling and trying to just do more. And in reality, we do need to slow down and just listen sometimes. And I love that. Like, get all the things and then listen, ask yourself what you need, do it again, and find that template for yourself. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, but I think for the average person, if we're just trying to get out of health debt, I mean, your food should keep you full and satisfied from a meal
Hmm.
for 4 to 5 hours.
Hmm.
If it hasn't or your energy is dropping, we need to relook at that meal potentially. And if that meal does, used to satisfy you and now no longer does, again, maybe it's time to look at what's going on in the gut. So
Yeah.
it starts to at least whittle down the options for you a little, right? And not
Hmm.
feel so overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And what other, maybe like to go beyond that, like what else would you say to someone who maybe they're doing the foundations, they're kind of doing these pieces. What would be the next step, maybe?
Yeah. So if you're doing the foundations and sort of choose your own adventure, right? If you're doing the foundations and you're feeling great, then I would encourage, I always want to encourage people, I think, to, let's get into that fitness routine. We know it's so powerful for us. And I like to cycle mine. So it's not every week, all every month of the year. I like to do kind of 3 months of intense and 3 months of a break, so we're getting a nice break in the body.
Mhm.
I do like kind of leveling up and taking a look at, you know, the environmental toxins that we might be exposed to, other things that start to impact our hormones. So usually if we're feeling good, we now have a little bit more energy. So let's invest a little bit of that in our health. If we
Mhm.
have this energy, let's take the time, let's, revisit maybe some of the impact that could be throwing off our hormones. Almost like going to an accountant and getting your accountant to like really deep dive and save you money somewhere. We're just going to take a
Mhm.
look at our skincare products, our cleaning products, our cookware, things like that, where we can make some simple swaps over a few months. And then I think, the two other things. One is I think to really take some time to dive into what brings you joy, what brings you
Mhm.
pleasure. We are fundamentally at an age in perimenopause where most of us are, probably going to start to empty nest soon, where maybe we have put aside the things that bring us joy for a while and really digging into the things that drive that massive amount of energy for us again to help us, I think, again, yeah, 10x our energy to feel our. And then finally, I think, preventatively, I am a big believer in knowing your own numbers. So working with a practitioner to have a baseline of what your labs are. So that I would put that in there as an annual thing. Let's invest in knowing like what, now that I'm feeling well, what does well look like in a lab? So that if that kind of comes off, I'm pretty aware of where to target to get back on. And then for people who I think are trying to do the foundations and either can't be consistent with them, who could use support, accountability wise, motivation, or just troubleshooting, or are doing the things and the things aren't working. I really think working with a practitioner then is really your next best step. Like we all want the fastest fix. So get a guide. Get a guide and get there quicker. That's really the
Mhm.
fastest way where you're not going to waste as much time and money.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially nowadays when there is so much information out there, it's so overwhelming. So many of
Mhm.
us feel like we have to do it ourselves still because we have the education, we have the knowledge, but still just having a guide, like you said, to just skip through some of the noise and really get the answers
Yeah.
so helpful.
Yeah, it's funny, we normalize hiring out a lot of things, but I guess somehow we just think as women we're supposed to know all this for ourselves, but
Mhm.
these things.
Yeah, I know.
So,
That's such a good
you
point.
know,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
love the point too of finding your passion, finding what brings you joy.
yeah,
We're not talking about that enough. I feel like
yeah,
in society in general, we have our careers and it's like, let's go. But you're right, especially if you've been busy with young kids and everything, and life is just going, going, going. All of a sudden, the kids are gone. You're like, what do I even like to do? I have no idea. So it's great to start to establish that right off the bat. And like you said, I feel like that can be such a powerful way to move your body if it's something that you like doing that's active. But
yeah.
also that is a piece of stress relief, and that's a piece of just everything. You sleep better when you've had a great day because you were so, fulfilled with what you were doing. So yeah,
You're a
very important.
happier person, your relationships will get better, or at least take stock of your life and think, okay, well, maybe where is the next stressful area that
Mhm.
now that my health is a bit more solid, I can invest some time in. If you are struggling as a parent or in your partnership, okay, we can spend some energy there now because we have that energy. And if
Yeah.
everything is pretty tickety boo, then I think you can really dive into just simple pleasures, things that just bring you joy, even if it's arts and crafts or if it's just, again, traveling, whatever that might be for you. It might not, or maybe it's a career change. It's hard to know. Everyone's different, but
Yeah.
there's so much opportunity. And we all know, when you are feeling aliveness, which comes from purpose, we know the energy push that comes from that, right? It's
Mhm.
like it's the same energy you get when you fall in love and you can talk to the person all night and you're not even hungry and you just have oodles of energy, right? It's just like
Mhm.
this is what comes when that part of you is stimulated.
Yeah. Yeah. And imagine all these women who can harness that once they are feeling better. They don't have to worry as much about the symptoms that are distracting them, even from just getting through a basic day, to be able to have the energy to then take on something new, take on the world, and do what really fills them up. That's so,
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the ultimate goal. That is again the gift of perimenopause. I think if
yeah.
you find you're irritated more than you'd like to be right now, let's address the irritation. Let's get us back to a place where now we have this capacity and space to like set our soul on fire.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I feel like that's such a great note to end on. Are there any other tips or anything you want to leave the listener?
I think again, it can all feel very overwhelming, all of it. So do not underestimate, I think, the impact that can happen from small changes over time. When I was just starting with healing myself, it took me 4 to 6 months of not working out, of prioritizing rest, of, try just getting those foundations. But gosh, it was worth it. And now it's so many years later, and I feel better than I did years and years and years ago. So I think just make the investment in yourself by taking the time, listen to what she says, your body says back to you, and be more in your life and not just less on a scale.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Bria, where can people find you? You did mention that you have a podcast. Where can people find your podcast and just learn more about you?
Yeah, so the Period Whisperer podcast is also anywhere you get your pods, iTunes, Spotify, all those good places. Or I often hang out on Instagram. That's a really good place at Bria Period Whisperer. You can find all the things there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Bria. I really appreciate you sharing just all these amazing.
Thank you so much, Miranda. I really appreciate all that you put out into this world. So I hope as I share this out, I hope everyone just comes and follows and learns from you because you show up so beautifully for women.
Thank you.